How is a sport like this even legal?
I'd be surprised if we see him again this evening.
There are no helmets, no pads. Not like a certain sport anyway. Just a calculated measure of brutality, purposely structured and expected by everyone who watches.
Was it well? Big hit on Safina and then whack!
Defensive scrum just prior to that.
In most sports, this would stop the game. In rugby, it's just Friday. This is why rugby is the most dangerous sport in the world. Americans call the NFL the most brutal sport on the planet. Europeans think it's the UFC. But I've been analysing sports history, looking at the kinetic energy of an NFL tackle and concussive force of a UFC knockout. Yet rugby has topped them all, opening a rabbit hole of injuries the world likes to forget.
So it was I was being put up onto the stretcher then. But I was aware at the time that Tana hadn't come up. I hadn't seen him around me, so I was a little surprised because I think it would have been part of my captaincy.
I wanted to understand why rugby destroys the body in a way no other sport does. And what I found is 4 distinct factors that, when you put them together, make rugby the most fatal sport ever. Even worse is how number 4 is simply just overlooked. And why rugby players never just ride into the sunset of retirement.
That was always the dream, to play and to be able to finish on your own terms. Yeah. Kind of mid-30s when you'd had enough. In fact, I would have loved to have come back to the Sharks for one final season and transition from playing into life after rugby back here in Durban, but that's not how it worked out for me.
Out in front, Carla takes it to the line. McGloin, oh!
Holy that tackle stung, but it's completely legal. In most people's minds, rules exist to make the game safer, to reduce the risk of injuries, but in rugby, it's designed to prove who has the biggest ball. The game forces players to put bodies on the line to stop tries, prevent the opposition from making meters, and even worse, to prove that you are the best. Just look at Ireland defending with everything they had while having just 12 players on the pitch.
Once more, another penalty advantage comes. Marnie Leboeuf on the loop, sends one wide to Moody. Pass was on the money. Damien Willemse takes the hit, and that's a great counter-ruck from the Irish, going back for the penalty.
Unlike the NFL, there are no blockers. In rugby, that's called obstruction, and the ball is turned over to the other team. The ball carrier needs to absorb every bit of contact all by himself. And I'm not talking about the aerial collisions.
It's a high one up. Chasing this is Jason Emery. That's a big collision.
That collision, while illegal now, is something that was just another day at the office a decade ago. If you don't go up for the ball, you can bet yourself the opposition will. And are you willing to let them score? I don't think so. And when 2 players finally hit the turf, that's where the real fun begins, in something called the ruck. Or you can just call it a scrimmage, if you're an NFL fan.
Onto McNally. There's a counter ruck there from England, and there's nothing wrong with that, says the referee.
Was neat. This is a great counter-rucking.
The ruck is the moment where anything goes. It is an all-out battle of will. Who is the strongest and who retains possession for their side? But it is also where players become brutal. What you just witnessed is a crocodile roll, a move now outlawed, but it was once common practice. And if the man doesn't want to get out of the way, this happens.
Great counter-ruck from the Springboks there. That is a dangerous entry from James Ryan.
That's a straight shoulder to the face of Marks. But when you lose the ball, rugby has something even more violent. A moment where 2 packs weigh in nearly a ton each, crash into one another like 2 trains colliding. This is the crowning jewel of legislative danger. It carries risks so immense that it literally shortens the career of players, especially props. If one player slips, it all comes crashing down, more than 4,000 pounds of weight slamming into the earth. Even worse is when someone doesn't master the technique, having all that force pushing their neck and head in the wrong direction. No wonder most forwards have cauliflower ears. The scrum isn't a fight, but an engine of force, and worst of all, it is created by rugby to make the game more exciting. So with rules like these, players don't choose to play rough, the rulebook forces them, and unlike the NFL, there's no real protection. Now you've seen some of the rules and how it forces players to be brutal. What you probably don't know is just how little protection these players have. When rugby players collide, the only thing they feel is pure muscle and bones of the other player crashing into them. That extra bit of fat they carry, that's the only real piece of padding. And maybe that flimsy little scrum cap. Now, I already see the rugby purists in the comments saying that NFL players can use their bodies like a human missile because of the pads, and that is true, but rugby players do so without them.
Sharp start, ball quickly away. Joey, goodness me.
I'm still in shock that he even managed to stop Tuilagi. Look at this, shoulder meets head.
Kevin Mark Gerard.
That was gruesome in its intent.
In the NFL, that impact makes a loud crack of plastic, and the fans cheer and the players high-five. The helmets absorb the shock and the face masks protect the skin. In rugby, skin splits instantly, blood pours, eye sockets fracture. If that player was wearing a helmet, it's a highlight reel hit. Without it, it's a trip to the ER and 15 stitches. Had any of them worn helmets, I bet they wouldn't need stitches. And it's the same with the body. In ice hockey, you have a hard shell of protection, chest pads, gloves, and even constant substitutions. The only protection a rugby player has is the skeletal structure he builds in the gym each week. When a rugby player takes a knee to the rib, nothing disperses the force. It's bone on bone. And when a head hits the pitch with whiplash, it's only the skull that protects them. The hard shell shoulder pads disperse the energy and you keep skating. In rugby, that same hit with that same force snaps a collarbone in half like a twig, because there's nothing between the bone and the concrete hard pitch but a thin cotton jersey. If they had pads, you can be damn sure we'd have fewer players going off in a stretcher. So what about UFC and boxing? I've got to admit, that is the closest you get to pure rugby pain.
He's fed up, and I don't blame him. Now the punches are raining in, and it's a free-for-all as both sides try and protect their players.
But there are no gloves when Tuilagi decides to unload. Yeah, the referee will stop the fight, and yeah, red cards are handed out, but the damage is already done. I've never seen a referee put himself in the middle of two players fighting it out. You see, modern rugby players are not the beer-drinking amateurs of the 1970s. These are athletes. You have wingers who run 100 meters in under 11 seconds, forwards who weigh 130 kilograms. When a 130 kilogram lock tackles a sprinting winger, the kinetic energy transfer is massive. Without padding to dampen that impact, the soft tissues of the body, muscles, ligaments, tendons, take the full load. Here's the part most people don't realize. Even the hardest punch in the UFC carries about 1,000 joules of energy, maybe 2,000 for a brutal kick. A full-speed rugby collision, that can exceed 5,000 joules, sometimes more. So while a knockout strike is devastating because all that force is focused into a jaw or a temple, a rugby hit often involves several times more total energy spread across two 100+ kilogram bodies, with no gloves, no pads, and no shell to absorb it. It's not one explosive impact, it's a car crash worth of force.
Cold out there on the wing for Tom Varndell since he came on. Hodgson, it's meant for Cueto. It could be anybody's, and you worry for Cueto.
This leads to a different kind of damage. It's not just concussions, it's superficial destruction. Rugby players finish games looking like they've been in a car accident. Cuts, lacerations, torn ears, broken noses. In the NFL, you might leave the field with a concussion, but you usually look the same as when you started. In rugby, the damage is worn on the face.
Well, that's what we came here to do, was to give ourselves an opportunity, and I guess we're doing it the hard way today, but we always knew that was going to be the case against Springboks, and yeah, it's just exciting. We get a crack at the final next week.
And they do so with a smile. But the physical danger is only half the story. The third reason rugby is the most dangerous sport is psychological. It is the culture. In football, if a player is touched on the ankle, they roll around. Why? Because it's strategic. It draws a foul. In rugby, if you're hurt, you hide it. Everyone talks about stoicism and self-sacrifice, but rugby is the pure embodiment of this. Pain is not seen as a signal to stop, and if you do, don't complain when your teammates call you a little boy. If you leave the field, you leave a gap in the defensive line your brother has to fill. Yeah, there are subs, but these are not for injuries. These are for strategic purposes, as Rossi showed us.
7, and I think that all 7 are about to be unleashed.
Players hide concussions, they hide injuries, and broken fingers simply get taped up. Imagine this, a player in the NFL breaks their foot, the whistle blows and everyone stops. He gets taken off the field and the commentators discuss his recovery timeline. The same thing happened in 2011 with my man Richie, but it was different, and instead of going off the field, they just gave him some magic spray. Even worse, he rocked up the next week to play the World Cup final, just popping a few painkillers and strapping it. If this was any other sport, he would never have been allowed to play, and I bet the All Blacks would never have won the World Cup. As for blood, that's different. But it's not that the player goes off by their own choice. Like Florian, he could have stayed off the pitch after that hit, but he didn't. He just came back and finished where he started.
He's only got 10 minutes to get him back on the pitch.
Well, there are many people who will applaud his bravery. And of course, we must do that.
Some might call it stupidity, but in rugby this is simply called loyalty. And even worse is the glory. Fans celebrate players coming off the field with broken ribs, or like Richie, winning a World Cup final with a fractured foot.
How to describe, I'm absolutely shaken. I like the courage and
what the guy's putting out there, we just had to dig as deep as probably ever dug before.
It's not just about playing through the pain to be a hero, but not letting your teammates down that keeps these men going. This culture pushes athletes to ignore their survival instincts. The danger isn't just the hit, it's the refusal to recover from it. And this is where the real danger of rugby begins. Finally, I have to talk about the danger you don't see on the highlight reels, the silent killer. In the NFL, they talk about CTE, but rugby has a unique issue, the cumulative effect of subconcussive hits. A rugby match is 80 minutes of continuous play. In the NFL, a play lasts 4 seconds, then you rest for 40. In rugby, you are in a state of physical combat for over an hour. Every ruck, every maul, every scrum involves micro-collisions. Your brain is being rattled, your neck is being compressed, and your joints are grinding. You might think that's fine because you're not knocked out. Look at this man, a legend. He lifted the Webb Ellis Cup. It was the greatest moment of his life. But ask him and he doesn't remember a thing. At the age of 42, yeah, just 42.
My brain just gives up and I've just sort of practically just have to sleep. At the time, you feel like the most selfless person if you are going to take your life and think that everyone's better without you. And then suddenly, I've had my third chance really because I didn't do it. People ask me, and it's true, like I regret playing rugby. If we knew now, this is why I'm talking out and helping people. And we've got lads and ladies that are sort of quitting rugby in their mid-20s from a professional career, and it sounds awful. I feel quite proud about that.
He was diagnosed with early onset dementia. He has stated publicly that he wishes he never won the World Cup. He wishes he never played the game. Why? Because rugby didn't just break his body, it deleted his memories. He is a ghost in his own life, watching replays of a man he doesn't even recognize. A shocking study recently revealed that there have been around 400 premature deaths linked to brain damage in rugby over the last decade. 400! That is not a statistic, that is a massacre. These are men dying in their 40s and 50s, leaving behind families, all because they put their heads in the firing line for our entertainment. It's arthritis at the age of 35, cervical spine degeneration at 40, and players reaching 50 in a wheelchair. The danger of rugby isn't just that you might die on the field. The danger is that the sport quietly borrows time from your future. It takes a toll on your body that you must pay back when you're 50, 60, and 70. So we have rules that force contact. We have a lack of armor and a culture of stoicism. And we have the long-term cost.
I was never really the same. I couldn't handle the head knocks or the big impacts. That was, the writing was on the wall and doctors advised me that I shouldn't play contact sport anymore.
By all logical metrics, this sport is madness. It is the most dangerous team sport on the planet. But this is exactly why we watch it. Boxing has harder punches, American football has faster collisions, but all those are isolated moments with padded gloves and armor. Rugby is a total commitment. The danger is on the point. The fact that you have no armor is what makes a tackle brave, and if it hurts, that sacrifice means something. When a player puts their body on the line, they aren't doing it for a paycheck, they're doing it for the brothers standing next to them. It's 80 minutes of relentless, hardcore contact. It's almost like going to the military where you build a specific kind of loyalty that only exists when you suffer together. It's brutal, it's dangerous, and it breaks the body, but it builds the soul and reminds us that we are alive. But let's get real for a second. I know I've spent the entire video pointing out the dark side of rugby, dementia, broken bones, and life-altering injuries. But if you're a true rugby fan, you know exactly why you wouldn't change a thing, because the danger is the price of admission for respect. You can spend 80 minutes trying to destroy each other, but the moment the final whistle blows, the moment a player stays down, the war is over. You see rivals acting like medics and enemies becoming brothers. There's a type of respect, a camaraderie for all being part of this dangerous sport, even if they are on the other side of the war. Now, I want to know what you think. Is the danger part of the appeal, or does the sport need to change? And look, we just spent almost 40 minutes talking about the noble side of rugby violence, but sometimes players just lose their minds. If you want to see what happens when controlled aggression turns into pure chaos, check out this video.